Muhammad Ali nin hapisteki ketiel verdi iders. Guardian Lardenanamada. August 15th, 1978. Folsom State Prison, California. Muhammad Ali walked into the most dangerous prison in America to put on a boxing exhibition. What nobody expected was the confrontation with Tommy, the Beast, a convicted killer who'd never backed down from anyone. What happened in those next 8 minutes left hardened criminals crying and changed a murderer's heart forever. Tommy had been in Folsom for 12 years. At 34, he was 6'4" of pure muscle and rage, with dead eyes and hands that had killed 3 men. They called him the Beast because that's what he'd become. An animal who survived by being more vicious than anyone else in a place where weakness meant death. He'd murdered his first victim at 19. A liquor store clerk during a robbery. The second was a rival gang member who'd disrespected him. The third was his cellmate who'd tried to steal his cigarettes. That last killing earned him 2 years in solitary, but also the kind of reputation that made even guards treat him with cautious respect. Tommy had been born in Oakland to a mother who abandoned him and a father who beat him before disappearing when Tommy was 8. Foster homes, juvenile detention, the streets. He'd learned early that the world was brutal and only the strongest survived. By the time he reached Folsom, violence was all he knew. But Tommy had one weakness. He was a fight fan. Before prison, he'd watched every Muhammad Ali fight, secretly admiring the man who'd stood up to the government and won. Ali represented something Tommy could never be. Respected, loved, free. It created burning jealousy mixed with grudging admiration. When word spread that Muhammad Ali was coming to Folsom for an exhibition, the entire prison buzzed with excitement. This was 1978, and Ali was still the most famous athlete in the world. The exhibition was part of a rehabilitation program to give inmates something positive to focus on. The warden was nervous. Folsom housed California's most dangerous criminals, but Ali had insisted he wanted to box in front of the toughest audience in America. "If I can reach these men," he'd said, "maybe I can reach anybody." Tommy had been unusually quiet since the announcement. He spent hours in his cell, wrestling with emotions he couldn't name. Part of him wanted to see Ali fight. Part of him hated everything Ali represented: freedom, success, the respect of millions. The day arrived with typical California heat pressing down on the prison yard. A makeshift ring had been set up surrounded by metal bleachers filled with 800 inmates. Guards were positioned everywhere, hands on weapons ready for trouble. When Muhammad Ali walked into that yard, something magical happened. These men, murderers, rapists, armed robbers, rose to their feet in spontaneous applause. For a moment, the divisions of race and gang affiliation disappeared. They were just people witnessing greatness. Ali was vintage Ali, working the crowd, shadowboxing, talking trash. At 36, he was past his prime but still charismatic. Still the master showman. He'd brought 2 sparring partners for the exhibition. But as Ali climbed into the ring, something in the crowd shifted. From the back section, where the lifers and most dangerous inmates sat, a voice cut through the cheers. "Hey Ali, you ain't shit in here, boy." The voice belonged to Tommy. He was standing now, his massive frame towering over the men around him. The applause died instantly. Every eye in the yard turned to look at the Beast, then back at Ali to see how he would respond. Ali's smile never wavered. He walked to the edge of the ring, looked directly at Tommy, and said, "What did you say, brother?" Tommy felt the attention of 800 men focused on him. This was his moment. His chance to prove that not even Muhammad Ali could intimidate him. His reputation, built on fear and violence, was on the line. "I said you ain't shit in here," Tommy repeated, his voice carrying across the silent yard. "This is my house, pretty boy. Your fancy footwork don't mean nothing to real men." The tension was explosive. Guards moved closer, fingers on triggers. Inmates held their breath, waiting to see if this would turn violent. Everyone knew Tommy's reputation, but Muhammad Ali did something that shocked everyone in that prison yard. He laughed. Not a mocking laugh, but a genuine, warm laugh that filled the entire space. Then he did something even more surprising. He climbed out of the ring and walked directly toward Tommy. "What's your name, big man?" Ali asked, approaching Tommy without fear, as if greeting an old friend. Tommy was confused. He'd expected anger, fear, maybe a challenge to fight. He hadn't expected this calm, friendly approach. "Tommy," he said, his voice losing some of its edge. "Tommy," Ali repeated, extending his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Tommy. I can see you're a serious man. Been in here long?" Tommy stared at the outstretched hand. Part of him wanted to slap it away, but something in Ali's eyes, genuine interest, respect, not the fear he usually saw, made him pause. 12 years, Tommy said, shaking Ali's hand despite himself. 12 years. Ali nodded thoughtfully. "That's a long time to be locked up. Must be hard on your family." Those words hit Tommy like a physical blow. Family. He hadn't heard that word in years. His face hardened again. "Ain't got no family," Tommy said coldly. "And I don't need your pity, champ." Ali didn't back away from the hostility. Instead, he moved closer, his voice dropping so only Tommy could hear. "I'm not pitying you, Tommy. I'm respecting you. You know why?" Tommy couldn't help himself. "Why? Because you've survived 12 years in the hardest place in America. Because you've become so strong that 800 men are watching to see what you do next. Because even locked up, you're still standing. That takes a special kind of strength." For the first time in years, Tommy didn't know what to say. He'd expected condescension. He hadn't expected to be seen as strong, as worthy of respect. "But let me ask you something, Tommy," Ali continued. "What are you going to do with all that strength? You going to use it to tear people down or build something?" "What do you mean?" Tommy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, you got two choices, brother. You can spend your time being the beast, scaring people, living off fear, or you can show these men what real strength looks like. The kind that lifts people up instead of knocking them down." Ali paused, studying Tommy's face, seeing the confusion and conflict in his eyes. "You know what the hardest fight I ever had was, Tommy? It wasn't against Foreman or Frazier. It was against myself, against my own anger, my own fear, my own desire to hurt the people who'd hurt me. That's the fight that made me champion." Tommy felt something breaking inside him, some wall he'd built to protect himself from caring. "You don't know what I'd done," he said, his voice cracking. "You don't know what kind of man I am." "I know exactly what kind of man you are," Ali said firmly. "You're the kind who's been hurt so bad that you decided it was safer to be the one doing the hurting. You're scared that if you let people see who you really are, they'll reject you. So you became something scary instead of something beautiful." Tears were forming in Tommy's eyes, and he hated himself for it. "I killed 3 men, he whispered. "I know," Ali said gently. "And I bet every day you wake up wishing you could take it back. I bet every night you go to sleep thinking about who you might have been if things had been different." Tommy's massive frame was shaking now. The beast was crumbling, revealing the broken child underneath. "What if it's too late?" Tommy asked. "What if I've gone too far to come back?" Ali put his hand on Tommy's shoulder, and that simple gesture of human connection broke the last of Tommy's defenses. The man who terrified an entire prison for 12 years began to cry in front of 800 inmates. "It's never too late," Ali said, his voice thick with emotion. "Real strength isn't about how much damage you can do. It's about how much healing you can create." What happened next would be talked about in Folsom for decades. Tommy, the beast, fell to his knees in front of Muhammad Ali and sobbed like the broken child he'd always been inside. And Ali knelt down with him and held him while 800 hardened criminals watched in absolute silence. "I'm sorry," Tommy kept repeating. "I'm so sorry for everything I done." "I know you are," Ali whispered. "And that's the first step back to being human." The boxing exhibition never happened that day. Instead, something far more powerful occurred. For the next hour, Ali talked to the inmates, not as an entertainer, but as someone who understood what it meant to be angry, to make mistakes, to need forgiveness. He talked about his own journey from an angry young man to someone who tried to use his fame to help others. He talked about the importance of choosing who you want to be each day, regardless of where you came from or what you'd done. And through it all, Tommy sat in the front row, tears streaming down his face, listening to ideas he'd never heard before. Ideas about redemption, about second chances, about the possibility that even someone like him could become something better. After Ali left that day, Tommy was a changed man. He started attending every educational program the prison offered. He got his GED, began studying for a college degree. He started a boxing club for younger inmates, teaching them that fighting could be about discipline rather than violence. Most importantly, he began reaching out to the families of his victims, writing letters of apology, trying to make whatever amends were possible. Not all responded, but some did, beginning a dialogue about forgiveness that would continue for years. The guards couldn't believe the transformation. The man who'd once been their most feared inmate became a mediator, breaking up fights instead of starting them. It's like Tommy died that day, and someone else took his place, Guard Captain Williams said. In 1985, after serving 19 years, Tommy was granted parole. The families of two of his victims actually wrote letters supporting his release. When he walked out of Folsom, Ali was there waiting for him. "You ready for the real fight now?" Ali asked, his hands showing early tremors of Parkinson's. "I've been ready for 7 years," Tommy replied. "Ever since you taught me what strength really means." Tommy became a counselor for at-risk youth, using his story to show kids that there's always a way back. He worked with Ali's foundation, visiting prisons and community centers, sharing the message that had changed his life. In 1996, when Ali lit the Olympic torch in Atlanta, Tommy was in the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "That man saved my soul," he told a reporter. "Not from prison, from myself." Tommy died in 2019. At age 75, he'd spent 34 years as a free man, helping countless young people avoid the path of violence. At his funeral, hundreds testified to his impact: former gang members he'd counseled, prisoners he'd mentored, families he'd helped heal. Muhammad Ali had died 3 years earlier, but his influence on Tommy's transformation was mentioned in every eulogy. The man who'd once been known as the Beast was remembered as someone who'd learned to use his strength to heal rather than harm. The warden's log from August 15, 1978, reads, "Scheduled boxing exhibition with Muhammad Ali. Event cancelled due to prisoner disturbance. No injuries reported. Unusual display of emotional response from inmate population." But those who were there knew the truth. It wasn't a disturbance that cancelled the exhibition. It was a miracle. The day Muhammad Ali walked into America's toughest prison and turned a beast back into a human being, proving once again that the greatest victories happen not in the ring, but in the human heart. The confrontation everyone expected to see was between Ali and Tommy. What they actually witnessed was Tommy's confrontation with himself, and the moment when love defeated hate, when understanding overcame anger, when the possibility of redemption proved stronger than the certainty of damnation. Muhammad Ali never threw a punch that day at Folsom, but he delivered the most devastating knockout of his career, striking down decades of rage and pain with nothing but compassion, and the simple truth that every human being deserves a chance to become better than they've been.